Under our feet, most people see only weeds, anonymous green clusters that fill the cracks between stones and the shadows under old fences. But sometimes all it takes is a small cut in a stem for reality to answer with a bright signal. From the wounded plant oozes a thick, viscous drop of deep orange sap, shining like molten gold or heavy ochre. This is the moment when a weed turns into an object of investigation. You are looking at celandine, a plant whose juice behaves less like a harmless herbal extract and more like a living biochemical scalpel. For more than 5,000 years, human beings have circled around this golden drop with equal parts fear and fascination. Ancient Greek physicians called the plant Chelidonium, linking it to the return of the swallows in spring, as if these birds were couriers of some secret remedy carried in their beaks. Pliny the Elder recorded the legend in his Naturalis Historia. Swallows, it was said, touch the closed eyes of their chicks with the plant's juice so that they may finally see. Today we know that putting this caustic sap into an eye is almost a guarantee of a chemical burn, not a miracle cure. Yet the mere fact that people searched for liquid light inside a roadside herb shows how deeply they sensed that something powerful was hiding there. During the Middle Ages, generations of doctors kept trying to force this plant into the role of an ophthalmologist's instrument. They attempted to treat cataracts and cloudy vision with celandine preparations, calling the process clarificatio, clarification. Modern pharmacology raises a red flag at the very thought, but for those early physicians, the risk seemed justified. What if the golden sap really could burn the darkness out of the eye? Paracelsian alchemists saw celandine differently. In their laboratories, lit only by fire and reflection, the plant was known as Celedonum, a terrestrial embodiment of the sun, a gift from the sky to those who dared to alter matter. They used its orange sap not on human tissue, but on metal. Before beginning their attempts at transmutation, they cleaned metallic surfaces with celandine juice, watching as it bit into stubborn organic grime and left behind an unnerving purity. They had no spectrometers, yet their hands felt that this was no simple dye, but a natural reagent capable of reshaping surfaces at a level invisible to the naked eye. Centuries later, chemistry would confirm their intuition. Inside that fragile green body hides an entire arsenal of alkaloids, more than 20 identified so far, with names that sound like passwords: chelidonine, sanguinarine, berberine, and others. Chelidonine, whose molecular structure resembles morphine, does not soothe pain so much as it interferes with the very rhythm of cell division. In vitro, it can freeze mitosis, pressing a biochemical pause button on proliferating cells. Sanguinarine goes further. It targets enzymes that maintain the integrity of cell membranes, punching microscopic holes into the walls that keep life contained. When these and other compounds operate together in the plant's latex, they form what could fairly be called a battery of selective destruction. Place that battery on a patch of thickened skin, a wart, a callus, a stubborn corn, and a silent surgery begins. The alkaloids dissolve keratin, weaken the protein bridges that bolt cells together, and gradually strip away tissues the body has marked as unnecessary or aberrant. Our ancestors, lacking scientific vocabulary, simply said, "It burns it off." Modern biology calls the process selective apoptosis, programmed death of selected cells. It is this precision that made celandine both a household remedy and an object of lasting suspicion. Because the sap does not carry a moral compass. It does not ask whether the cells in front of it are pathological or perfectly healthy. If the juice remains too long on intact skin, it faithfully continues its work, denaturing proteins, disrupting membranes, carving a chemical wound. The result is a burn, and if the exposure is prolonged or repeated, scarring. Dermatologists today warn that reckless self-experimentation with fresh celandine sap can drive its action deep into the dermis, far beyond the layer we intended to clean up. Inside the body, the stakes climb even higher. Ingested in unmeasured doses, the plant's alkaloids turn from local tools into systemic toxins. The liver, that quiet chemist of the organism, bears much of the impact. At high concentrations, celandine compounds can overwhelm its detox systems, leading to serious damage. That is why modern pharmacopoeias only allow standardized extracts in strictly controlled amounts and never recommend homemade internal use. Paracelsus's dictum finds a particularly sharp illustration here. Everything is poison, everything is medicine. It is the dosage that draws the line. Yet to reduce celandine to a list of risks would be to miss the larger story. For centuries, before microbes had names and petri dishes, people recognized in this plant a force that did something extraordinary to their surroundings. Slavic villagers, for example, turned the golden sap into a guardian of milk. Ethnographic records describe how fresh celandine was scalded in boiling water. Then the resulting infusion was used to wash clay jugs and earthenware vessels destined for dairy. Aggressive alkaloids penetrated the porous ceramic walls, erasing fungi and bacteria before they could spoil the contents. Milk stored in such vessels soured noticeably more slowly, even in summer heat. Families who had never heard the word antiseptic quietly practiced a form of it every day. From the vantage point of our century, we might call celandine a prototype of antibacterial coatings, a rustic analog of nanosilver and modern antimicrobial plastics. But in those kitchens, nothing was prototype. It was simply the way to keep children fed and bellies safe. The golden drop did not belong to the realm of theory. It lived in the rhythm of chores. Textile workers also befriended the plant. Depending on the mordant used, celandine's milky juice could bind to fabric and gift it hues of sunlight. Pale lemon, rich saffron, warm, persistent gold. Clothing dyed with celandine was prized not only for its color, but for its supposed protective aura. The belief that such garments guarded the wearer's skin from disease may sound superstitious, yet trace amounts of berberine and other compounds left in the fibers indeed show mild antiseptic properties. In other words, the myth of protective cloth grew from a very real biochemical whisper. Perhaps the most forward-looking role of celandine, however, unfolded in the garden. Farmers observed that where the plant took root, certain pests hesitated to follow. Infusions of crushed celandine, sprayed over vegetable beds and fruit trees, helped keep aphids and scale insects at bay, making the plant one of the earliest ecological insecticides. It defended the garden like a small chemical warrior, repelling intruders without leaving long-lasting toxic footprints in soil or fruit. Centuries before we spoke of organic agriculture, somebody's grandfather was already stirring a bucket of bitter-smelling herb to shield his cabbages. Beyond its practical uses, celandine acquired a quiet, sacred geography. It often grew by thresholds and along fences at the border between inside and outside. People took this not as coincidence, but as a hint. The plant belonged where things crossed over: air into house, stranger into family, health into illness. They spoke of it as a biological filter, a living firewall that burned away what should not be allowed to pass. Whether or not viruses respect such symbolism, the presence of strong phytoncide-rich plants near human dwellings undeniably shapes the microecology of air and insects around them. In this way, Celandine became a partner in an unspoken pact. Humans gave it space near their homes. In return, the plant lent them its aggressive chemistry to guard food, animals, and doorways. The purity of the body and the purity of living space were bound together by the same orange droplet that pulsed inside each hollow stem. It was a humble neighbor, yet an incredibly powerful one, holding a compressed history of trial and error in every milliliter of sap. To live alongside such a plant was to be constantly reminded that the line between help and harm is razor thin. From the perspective of modern biochemistry, Celandine is almost a paradox made flesh. How can a single species simultaneously deserve the titles of divine gift and dangerous reagent that forgives no carelessness? The answer lies in its internal code. A dynamic balance of compounds like chelidonine, which calms and slows, and sanguinarine, which attacks and disrupts. Together they form a push-and-pull system, a built-in conflict that gives the plant its scalpel personality. Where our ancestors saw sun and shadow wrestling inside one stalk, we now see a complex network of molecular weights and counterweights. They used its power to sterilize their homes and paint their fabrics with the colors of the sun. But they never forgot the shadow cast by that light. In a world now dominated by synthetic chemicals, Celandine remains a vivid reminder that some of the most potent reagents do not arrive in labeled bottles. They grow quietly next to a fence or under a forgotten wall, fully loaded and absolutely indifferent to whether we understand them or not. Its very accessibility is the most dangerous illusion. Because when something so strong grows literally at your doorstep, it tempts you to treat it lightly. Celandine demands distance, and even more, it demands respect. It asks us to stop being mere consumers of nature and become thoughtful investigators instead. We can admire its golden drop, study its alkaloids, harness its strength through carefully controlled medicines and ecological practices. But the plant itself never stops being what it is, a high-concentration natural reagent encoded with both cure and catastrophe. The choice of which side we wake up depends not on the plant, but on our knowledge. So the next time you snap a hollow stem on a forgotten path and see that orange tear swell at the wound, pause. You are not looking at a random weed. You are looking at thousands of years of human curiosity, error, ingenuity, and reverence condensed into a single living form. In that tiny drop glows the memory of alchemists' furnaces, village kitchens, dairy sheds, sun-colored garments, and fields free of pests. It is not just sap. It is a golden archive that continues to write itself every season we choose to walk past it, or finally, to truly see it.